It is important for you to really know a little bit about the history of the Kenyan independence. And with that, I want to give it up to Mbatia. Can you give him a hand, please, as he comes?
Thank you all. The MC told us that we should teach our guests a few words of Kiswahili. And because I am a good person, I like people, I will go over and above that and introduce to you a few words of the Kikuyu Greek. So I invite all of you to join me to listen to the history of our country, Kenya, and also to celebrate the independence of our country. And on 20th October 1952, Sir Evelyn Baring, the governor of the British colony of Kenya, declared a state of emergency, and a dusk dawn curfew was introduced. And over 180 people were arrested. But how did we get to this boiling point? The events that led to this extremely harsh state of affairs date back to the 1885 Berlin Conference, when the Europeans partitioned Africa. And thereafter, the land of Kenya became a colony of Britain. But no sooner had the Britons set foot in Kenya did the resistance begin. Notable examples include the Nandi resistance, which was led by Koitalel Arap Samoei, and which ran from 1895 to 1905. In 1913 to 1914, there was the Giriama revolt, led by Mekatilili wa Menza. And so even in 1947, the women in Moranga revolted because of forced labor. And these pockets of resistance were not very organized, and they were not successful. But they sowed the seeds of resistance and the struggle for independence. So in 1942, the members of the Gikuyu, Ebu, and Meru, the Gema, and here today they are referred to as the mountain. So these people, they came together. Why? So that they could resist colonial rule. In Kavirodo, Kavirodo is the former name of Nyanza, there was the Luo Union, which was led by Oginga Odinga. Elsewhere, especially in Nairobi, the elite formed the Kenya African Union, principally to target access to white-occupied land. And KAU had a nationalistic look. The leadership represented many people, including people like Walter Wycliffe Awori, people like Tom Botera, people like Jomo Kenyatta. But let us pause for a moment and ask ourselves, why were the natives resisting colonialism? There were many reasons, but I will cite four. Number one, land. Their land was taken away and they were made to be squatters. Number two, there is forced labor. When the settlers needed people to work in the farms and elsewhere, who did they resort to? The native people. Number three was the kipande, the ID. It's not like the ID that you have today. That was a metal plate which was hung over the chest on a string looped around your neck, more or less like a dog tag. That's why people resisted it. And then number four, there was forced taxation. Remember, governments run on money that is raised through taxation. The colonial administration needed money, and therefore they had to tax the people. But these were people who never had money in their lives. And remember, their land had been taken away, so even the goats and the cows and that they had before were greatly reduced. Therefore, they had very little. Whatever goat you had, you sell to pay tax. And if you are working, getting peanuts, you also get to pay the tax. So there were taxes like the poll tax on a per head, and there was even the heart tax, heart as in a building. And the heart tax, besides raising money, was also meant to curb the traditional polygamy practice. And here's how it worked. Because it was levied on a per heart basis, it meant that if a man had 4 wives, and each wife with a heart, those were 4 units plus heads, so 5 units to levy tax on. But if he had only 1 wife, like the pastor, so only 1 unit to pay tax 4. And now, because this history normally takes us more 45 minutes. And since I don't have that time, I will narrow down the historical thread to the Mau Mau and independence. And all those grievances, that is what led to the Mau Mau rebellion, which lasted from 1952 to 1960. The word Mau Mau has been given many meanings. But for me, I like sticking to the meaning that my father and my mother and the other men and the women in our village who lived through the colonial and independence times gave me. And here is what they say, that during those times, the colonial administration, they kept on coming to the people's houses to search whether there were Mau Mau people who are there, whether oathing was going on. There were a lot of oaths to bind people together and also to keep secrets. And so these people kept on coming. So whenever they were spotted from far, somebody would shout, "Get out." In Kikuyu Greek, that is Uma. And so the people devised a code so that the raiders, the colonial administration, might not know. And they devised a simple code. Just pronounce the word Uma, get out, in reverse. So, Mau. And this was good because young children, boys and girls, as they played around and they spotted those colonial administrators, they would just say, Mau. They are chasing each other, yet they are delivering a message. And if they did it in quick succession, Mau Mau, that meant the situation was dangerous. You had to get out and run for your lives. That is why a song was composed. And it goes like this. Umai umai ne we boraina wo kya yuha we gugu we roedara nei henya nekyo moi uage to baraya mau mau baradere mwabonare kedire. That is, get out is the song that ran up when the situation grew hot. Whoever had an ear had and ran for their lives. And so, when the situation grew so hot, unbearably, the governor of the colony of Kenya declared a state of emergency on October 20th, 1952. And all the leaders of KAU, Kenya African Union, were arrested. And they included Vilgad Kagia, Kongo Karoba, Jomo Kenyatta, Fred Kubai, Paul Gay, and Achieng Adeko. And while they were in detention, the rest of the freedom movement leaders, people like Tom Mboya, people like Pio Gama Pinto, Alvin Skodek, and Ogiga Odiga, they kept up pressure for independence and also for the release of their detainees. But now we have talked much about leadership. What about the Holoi, the ordinary people? Where were they? These people were toiling in the villages. Remember, they are squatters living in villages, doing forced labor. And there is even a dusk to dawn curfew from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So there was very little time to work for yourself, to go fetch water from the river and also to fetch firewood. And things were very, very hard. And but the good thing is, the missionaries had taught the people that there was a community somewhere which had been in slavery, and they prayed to their God, and God heard them and delivered them. So even the people in the villages, they also composed songs to that effect. Chana cha Israeli, chana Misiri, desharuti dario wera monene mono. Wariwa, anybody knows? Vare na otua ganeki, desharele Jehovah amarutioko boine. Meaning, when the children of Israel were enslaved in Egypt, doing hard labor, cutting grass, making bricks, they cried to God to save them. And sure enough, God heard them and saved them. And so now we come to the Mau Mau. And the Mau Mau, unlike other movements which were peaceful and non-violent, the modus operandi of the Mau Mau was violence and brutality, principally directed towards the colonial administration and the European settlers, and also towards the fellow Africans, who were traitors and betrayers of that movement. And the Mau Mau waged a very well coordinated war. And they were led by people like Field Marshal Dedan Kimathi, Field Marshal Musa Matejago. He had dreadlocks just like any other Mau Mau. General China, General Mwariama, and many others. And Kimathi formed the Kenya Defense Council in 1953, and that was meant to coordinate all the activities of the Mau Mau forest fighters. And when I was young, I was walking with my father one time, and there was a truck, a lorry that I would see in a certain homestead. It didn't move, and it was overgrown with vegetation. And so I asked my father, why doesn't that truck ever move? And my father kind of froze. And when he regained composure of himself, he pointed to that truck with his hand shaking. That truck costed Kimathi his leg and his life. I was shaken. And I asked him, did it knock him down? No. Told him that his son, you don't understand. During the Mau Mau War of Independence, he began. Kimathi led all the Mau Mau forest fighters. And for that, a price was put on his head. That whoever gives information or helps to have him captured will get a big reward. And Dirango, in whose homestead you see that truck, was a home guard. And in one of the fights, he shot somebody. The other people escaped. But it happened to be that it was Kimathi who was shot in the leg, so he did not escape. And he was captured in 1957. And the following year, on February 18, 1956, he was captured in 1956, and the following year, on February 18, 1957, he was hanged at Kamiti Maximum Security Prison. But the cause of independence did not stop, because the Mau Mau rebellion had put in place events that helped Kenya to move faster on the road to independence. And as the pressure mounted, the colonial administration realized that social, political, and land reforms were necessary for the people of Kenya. Eventually, on 1st of June 1963, the colony of Kenya was granted internal self-governance, with Jomo Kenyatta as the Prime Minister and Queen Elizabeth II as the head of state. That is why 1st of June in Kenya is a public holiday celebrating Madaraka Day, when we got internal self-rule. Now, the same year, on December 12, 1963, Kenya attained full independence. And the Union Jack is the British flag. The Union Jack was lowered down for good, and up went the new Kenyan flag. And a man called Kisoi Munyao climbed the way to the top of Mount Kenya, and there hoisted the new Kenyan flag. That's why you normally hear this song. Munyao Aisha Fendera, Aisha Fendera, the Yamaruli Matatu, Aisha Fendera, Wamoilo Nemodo Muilo, Aisha Fendera, Girini Neo Veito, Aisha Fendera, Harambe, Harambe, hey, Munyao, where is the flag? The black represents the people of Kenya. The red signifies the blood that was shed for our independence. The green represents the land of Kenya. And in the middle, you can see there is a shield and there are spears. And those are to remind us that independence was fought for. It was not given on a silver platter. And therefore, that is why on December 12 in Kenya, we celebrate Jamhuri Day. And that is why I'm actually standing here telling you all this. Now, when the president, now President Kenyatta, Jomo, when he addressed the people during the Independence Day, he encouraged them to forgive, forgive, and forgive. Why? Because we all had done something wrong. So if you are a Mau Mau, forgive. If you are a home guard, forgive. If you are a villager, forgive. If you are this, forgive. If you are that, forgive. And as we do so, we will all walk tall with pride and dignity as we build our new nation. Maana yake, kanyaga njia kwa nguvu na raha, hilo ni hakikisho la rais wetu. Zamani tulikuwa MP number 4, sasa about tani tuko number 1. Kenya, Kenya, Kenya taifa letu, Kenya, Kenya, Kenya nchi yetu. Tusimamie hapo. And if you remember, we said earlier that when the people were under the yoke of colonialism, they prayed to God to save them. And so when independence was attained, the people did not forget. They remembered. And the administration, the new African administration, decided that the words to acknowledge God will be put in our national anthem. That is why the national anthem, which we sang here a moment ago, began with the words, "O God of all creation," recognizing that God is the creator of the land that they were fighting for, the peace that we all need, and everything. And since you are all Christians, I am sure you can relate that to Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God? Yes. And later on, a talented musician, I'm finishing Musa, just the last thing. A talented musician called Kakai Kilonzo sang a song. Actually, it is not a song because it is a prayer. And if you know it, sing with me, just the first stanza. Wimbo huu ninaibao, sio wimbo ni maombi, nikiomba Mwenyezi Mungu Baba aibariki Kenya yangu. Ewe Kenya nchi yangu, ewe Kenya mama yangu, sitakuacha milele, kwa jina la Baba na Mwana Roho Mtakatifu, amina.
That was a really, really great presentation. Thank you so much, Dr. Mbatia.